happened that I were retrenched 3 times. Yeah, at the end 3 times. And then you start to wonder, or you focus on yourself, and you wonder, um, what is your capability? Are you really capable? You start to question yourself, and to get all these emotions, rid off. I start to put it in writing, just for myself, yeah, to handle it in a good way, not in a furious way or whatever. And then at the end, when I start to write it down, um, I think then I met Ansa, and I think she said also to me, maybe there's something more into it than only your own emotions, and how to handle it in a positive way. So at the end, it's like a guideline for people who've been retrenched, and families that had to go through that challenge. And now we're busy with CPD points for social workers on this booklet, so that I can assist the clients in a better way, or equipped in a better way. Yeah, I think that is more or less where we are now, Hendrik.
Thank you very much for
I
that.
think so.
Yeah, Susan. So what you also touched on when you said when there's one thing going through the process, but it's also so emotional, other than just the financial side of it. And you document that very nicely in the book. What would be your guidance, and referring to the book as such, for us as financial advisors and financial coaches on the line, working with clients going through a retrenchment process, and referring back to your own process? And specifically, if we start off, how do you share that? You're going to be retrenched, or initially you've got the fear of being retrenched, and then you go through the retrenched process. How do you share that with your family, your husband and your children? Because like you say, part of the process was going through working through the trauma yourself. But what guidance will you give to us? How do you engage with your clients, helping them through that process?
Okay. Well, first of all, I must also tell you, my husband was also retrenched twice, né? So I always say to him, when other people talked about their exes, we can talk about our retrenchments. Yeah, humor is very important in this whole journey. First of all, I think, when it happened, I think it's a shock. It's a shock, especially when you're a hard worker and you're committed to what you're busy with, and it happened. It's a shock, first of all. So I think, out of a financial point of view, it's very important just to don't make any decisions immediately, né? Because you're stressed, you're worried about tomorrow or the year after, this year, whatever. Don't make any decisions, easily or in a fast way. And if you can have a good relationship with your financial marketer or coach, that is very important. Somebody, I think, outside your family cycle. That is very important, that you really have a trustworthy person that you can talk to, and to focus, from the outside into your position, that you don't make, go and have a drink, and then you make some terrible mistakes in the end. Nee. So I think that is the main thing. The other thing I think is, for a day or so, that if you have time to withdraw you a little bit of the whole process and look, like, as I said, from the outside in, and then good communication between you and your spouse, That is also very, very important. And that you can be really honest with that person. I think that is very, very important, that you can support each other. And then you start to, analyze the whole process. You have to talk to your children. If they still, dependent, especially from you, because they must understand why are you going to make certain cuts on your budget, or maybe you now at home for a certain time.
I think we lost Susan there for a moment. Ansa, just to latch on to what Susan said, is that it's critically important that one do not make a decision, or that a client mustn't make a decision while in that flat spin. And uh, for, we know our brains cannot think clearly when we under stress and going through that, or any trauma. Actually, your guidance from a financial wellness coach point of view, working with clients that's in such a working with clients in a transition like this, going through retrenchment, what would your guidance be? What is the important things to look for and watch out for, Ansa?
Hi, good afternoon. Sorry, I was a minute or two late, and we have load shedding. I think that's maybe why we lost to Sun, because I think we're in the same region. Anyway, thank you, Hendrik. Yeah, I think the most important thing is to try and manage the emotional overwhelm. And that's also the first tool that I try and teach my clients, is how to identify where in all on this wheel of emotions, where do you find yourself, and then how to manage that. Do we if you find yourself in the fear segment, to unpack that a little bit and just see, how does this in the end affect my behavior, my thought patterns, and do I find myself in a repetitive toxic pattern of worry? Because worry is normal, but we have to also eliminate the fight and flight reaction that you go into when you go through trauma like this, or a loss, or that kind of thing. That's the one side, is the emotional unpacking of that and finding tools to manage that. The other side is the clinical burnout, which you of course then have to address with a medical practitioner that is trained in burnout. Not all doctors believe in burnout, but that is one very important part, because if you are clinically burnt out, no amount of coaching or supplements or positive thinking will get you out of that state. So it's important to support that, and then to try and get the emotional overwhelm managed with specific tools, catching the emotion and containing it if you can't deal with it right now, or if you need somebody to help you deal with it, then fact check the fears. Is it a perceived fear, or is it a very real fear? Do these fact checks, and then change what you can change. Put plans in place, but also that which you cannot change, to change your attitude about that, because that's the only thing you'll have control over, is to then change your attitude, get to a point of maybe radical acceptance, if it's something that is completely out of your hands. But also what I try and teach them is to try and be curious about the road ahead, because the possibilities that come with curiosity is what will eventually bring the solutions. So nobody will have the answers, but just managing that emotional overwhelm will already bring you to a place where you know what emotion you're dealing with. And it inevitably gets back to fear of whatever, but that fear can branch out into into more into secondary emotions, which is then what you need to unpack so that you can manage that overwhelm. Because it's when that overwhelm when that's there, you make all these silly decisions because you're in the fight and flight, you burn out, you just grasp to try and survive, grasp anything. And that's when you guys really need to support your clients to not make wrong decisions. Yeah.
Thanks for that, Ansa. We also use a tool which I teach for the financial coaches, which is helpful, is, I call it financial triage. It's just to create some space, is to say, okay, let's write down everything that's worrying you. What is all those concerns? What is the things that's keeping you awake at night? Just write all of that down as a list and then say, what is the most important things that we need to take action to now? What is that we can park for somewhere in the future? And what is things that most probably we don't even have to worry about now? It's something, you retrench now, doesn't worry about the retirement, perhaps, is a good example. We'll get back. But the important thing is, don't use your retirement funds by any means. If you have got alternatives we can look at. So let's have that discussion, and that also just helps to take away that bunch of information you've got and make it less. Susan, you also write in the book, if we jump back again with family and your friends, as well as your own husband, and because you're lucky, your family supported you, but also there can be people that's critical about you. And also some people is afraid. I know of somebody that for a period of 3 months after he was retrenched, he actually got up each morning, dressed, got in his car, drove and go and drank coffee through the town and never told his family, until his wife one day phoned to his previous job, and he said, the people at the job said to his wife, but has been retrenched. Actually, he was fired, but for the past 3 months, he didn't go home. So that also happens. So how do you deal with criticism, Susan, from people, and how can one perhaps help facilitate that that sharing the retrenchment with family and friends? I think you muted, Susan.
Susan got bitten by a buffalo.
Yeah, okay. I think, no, it's not mute still.
No,
Can you hear me?
Yeah.
Can you hear me? Okay. Sorry. I think, criticism, that it will happen. And although retrenchment these days is not every second person being retrenched somewhere, it's still, is it like a stigma, I think. And people can think, what, this person is maybe not, up to it, or is not competent or whatever. So, it can tackle your self-image. But I think what I do, I have to come home, especially with the first retrenchment, after it happened. It's just to give yourself a chance, but not too long, to refocus. And, my father learned me that you can never keep a good man down, meaning just go on, You know what is your abilities. Now, I know that is not such, you don't feel every day like that. But if you know your abilities, and I think the one concept, and Ansa is really often on that, is mindfulness. Is just to focus, and I really do it, especially when I got a challenge that I don't know what to do today, and I know I don't have to solve it today. 10% of the time like today now, 10% or 80% of my focus at least must be here where I am at this stage. Rather 100%, but at least 80%. And 10% you take out of your experience in the past. But the positive experience, I know that is also a challenge, because some people, You know, they were always said, oh, if that thing doesn't happen, then that won't happen, la, 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 nee. But you have to focus on the moment, make the base of the moment, because then your energy is more, nee? And then 10% on what happened in the future. And I really try to do so. And then I parked an issue, nee? Like with the retrenchment, I learned myself, nee? That, okay, here is today. At this stage, I don't have a job. What abilities did I learn in the past that I maybe can use? And I think Ansa also said that you must think out of the box. I can't think, okay, say for instance, I was now a marketer at the school for so many years, and I can only do this. No, think out of the box. Think about all the possibilities and the skills that you got. Because at that stage, you freeze. And if you can just move out of that and look at all your capabilities, but it is difficult. And that is why now at my age, I really recognize that you can lose everything. You can lose everything. But if you have a support system, you're 100%. You can really lose, or if you have people that believe in you, and it can be one or two, and you've got a support system. And the other thing is network. If you do your work well, wherever you were in the past and you've been retrenched, you know what you've done, eh? So that things will come back to you. So you must just go on and go on and go on and look at other abilities as well. But mindfulness and start with making a list for every day and tick it off. I mean, it can be something really minor, like you have to go and shop, you have to go and buy some food. At some stage you don't feel like it when you're really into that situation, but step by step we'll get there again. And afterwards, if I look back, I'm glad that happened to me. Yeah, I'm totally, my focus is totally in another way. I'm looking at people totally in another, out of other framework. I'm more creative. I've got more energy. Okay, if you told me that 5-6 years ago, I would say, you talk nonsense, really. But really, if you just manage it in a correct way, yeah. And okay, I'm lucky at this stage, I must say. My main income is to train, auxiliary workers for welfare. And welfare workers or social workers, they not the highest paid people in the country, but at this stage, just for interest sake, and I'm really grateful for that. But it's my best income ever, and now I'm 61 years old. Just it's always okay. And it can go back again because it's contract work, and I don't know how next year will look like. But just to give you an idea, and I meet people like Ansa and Hendrik, and we're busy with exciting things. So if you can you must just stop and say you will be okay again. I don't hope I go now, out of what you ask me, Hendrik, but that is more or less my testimonial.
Yeah, but I think there's an interesting thing in life planning. We talk about, creating meaning for clients. So because if you know what you want to do and what you do excites you, then it's so much easier to plan the finances, and the finances to a large extent is just the enabler for the process. But what is interesting for me, and it's just observing, is you always following your passion, engaging in occupations where you need to engage with people, networking, again, engaging, training people, caring for people, which comes from your social work. So, and Ansa also referred, when she talked about the emotions around that, is what is the emotions that will serve you, is being curious and exploring that. Is how if you now think back, how did that enable you to keep on exploring this passion of yours, and how did that help you, Susan?
I'm a very curious person, I must say. If I see a new brand, I go and look, what is this about, ne? So that is the one thing, that helps me a lot, because that exposes me to different options, ne? Definitely. And yeah, I think that is the one thing. And I also think, if you look at I rather can call it a booklet than a book. It's not such a thing, but I think your upbringing also play, in my case, it played a role. Okay, I came from the Northern Cape, where there's not a lot of resources. Your best resources are people in that areas, mostly, ne? Because it's rural areas. There's not a lot of other things, so you must rely on each other, ne? I think that plays a role. Another thing that maybe I think played a role in my circumstances was that my father was an attorney, and then he went bankrupt due to the fact, you can pay me later, let me just help you now, ne? So money don't really ever play a prominent role, or ever played a prominent role in my life. And from my father's example, if I can call it that way, that you just keep going. I think that helped. And then, okay, he deceased when he was only 48, and then my mother has to go on. She only got grade 10, and we were 4 children. And at the end, all of us went to university. How she did that, I can't really figure that out. But I think your upbringing also plays a role, and your resilience. And in our family, we got a very, humor. It plays a big role. If you can't do anything, laugh, because that releases some energy. And some people don't really understand that, because sometimes if I don't know what to do, I start to laugh. And then I think, oh, maar kopie is nie reg nie. But energy, it helps. It helps you and look at the bright side of things. Okay, that also, I think, plays a role. I think the example that people said, that was part of your upbringing, I think that plays a role. But anybody can do that, as long as you have somebody who believes in you and support you and take you with. You can do so.
Tell me, Ansa, perhaps back to you, and I know kids and parenting is at the heart of the work that you do. What advice can you give us to help our clients and guide them with that conversations of getting over this fear to share what happened with me, and getting everybody, how do we want to handle those crucial conversations, because it's difficult times. All of a sudden, things that was taken for normal is no longer normal. In some instances, the client don't know if they're going to get a job in a month, 3 months, whatever the case may be. How can, from a wellness coach point of view, how can one help facilitate those conversations?
That's a brilliant question, and it also depends on, obviously, the age of the children. But it's very, very important to explain to them what the situation is in an age-appropriate way. And also that you do not ever create fear with them, and you never create guilt with them, that they feel it's their fault or they're a burden and that kind of thing. So I think it's how you communicate it to them. But we had to go through that because my husband works overseas, and with COVID, he was stuck in South Africa for 2 years, and we had to sit our young adult children down and say to them, look, this is the situation. Here's our budget. Where do you think we can cut and manage and so on? And it was absolutely amazing what their input was and how they started making plans, and how they said, okay, but look, you don't have to pay us pocket money because we can generate it here, and that kind of thing. So I think to keep the communication lines open is important. the challenge is to do it in an age-appropriate way, and it also makes it a lot more difficult if you internalize this loss of income as a weakness, and you try and hide it from your children as if it's your fault, and as if you are not good enough to take care of them, and just say to them, look, these things happen, and all we have to do now is cut down on takeaways and cut down on XYZ, whatever works in for your family. And this is just so that we can get through these difficult times. And that it's never, ever the child's responsibility to see that we make it financially, but that they play a very important role, and it makes them feel part of the team. And we often underestimate what children pick up. They know, they pick up, they internalize it, and it becomes their inner story that they eventually live, and they start developing this whole fear thing around money, which plays out in their lives one day. So to play open cards in an age-appropriate way, and in our instance, I actually printed out the budget, and I said to them, like, have a look here so that we can see this is what we need, this is what we get in, and how do you think we're going to kind of, like take shorter showers, to save some water and electricity, simple things like that they take for granted. Where with little children, it's easier to say, look, come to the shop with me. Let's go and see which milk is the cheapest, so that we can maybe save R2 on this. And you use it as an opportunity to teach very important skills and resilience, and that it doesn't have to affect who you are. It's no reflection on the person I am, that I'm not a bad person because I cannot afford XYZ. I did a very simple exercise with our daughter when she was 5. She saw a dress in Woolies and she wanted this dress. I said, okay, let's speak to Daddy about it. And then he said, okay, get the dress, what dads are like with their little girls. Then I went to, I think it was Ackerman's, and I said to her, okay, let me just unpack here what you can get for the same money, shoes, handbag, little shirt, and whatever. And she was like completely surprised with this exercise. She said, for the same money? I said, yes, so you can have this dress or you can have all of this. And she actually opted for the Ackerman's option, or the whatever option, And it was a very basic exercise just to explain that, if you value the dress enough, you invest in the dress. If you value in more than that, just to show that, money is, it's something that flows, and that you can apply the way you choose to. There's no wrong or right. It's what is a priority to you. So to involve your children from a very young age in that kind of process, so that they know what the value is and where you can actually cut down when you need to. But the two most important things to never do is make them feel responsible for the situation, or make them feel guilty that they cost you money, because they do, and it's not their fault. But pull them into the team, get their contributions. They come up with amazing ideas, and it makes them part of the team, so they don't feel apart. They feel part of it. And it teaches resilience. My dad just always used to say, you can never keep a cork down. If you let go of a cork under the water, it jumps out again. And if you can live like that and bounce back. And I think that's what we need to teach children from a very young age. And I don't know how, what you guys, how you approach it, but I'm very pro pocket money from as young as possible, just so that they can start getting the feel for spending and not spending. My cousin's little boy, they said he wanted to take some money to buy a nonsense toy, because he knew it was something that wouldn't last. And his mother said, okay, how much do you want to spend on this nonsense toy? We underestimate their ability to learn. And make them part of it. Yeah, age appropriate, of course.
Thank you very much, Ansa. Open to the floor. Anybody that wants to ask Susan or Ansa perhaps something around Susan's experience, clients that you also have that went through a retrenchment, or clients that's going through a retrenchment, questions that you've perhaps got. You can just unmute and the one question. Yeah, Une, you can go, please. Yeah.
Yes. I like what one of the speakers said about getting to a point where you objectively weigh your options and take a decision as to what things are important to act on now, those that you can attend to soon, and those that you can attend to later. You referred to it as triage as well, Hendrik. And I was going to say, in transitions planning, we talk about the decision-free zone, which is quite similar to the financial triage, and the importance of circling back to the client's purpose. So there's a purpose, method, outcome process that is used there to say where the client is having difficulty taking decisions, or they have narrow focus or fractured focus because of everything that's happening. You always circle back to their purpose, and that will always allow them to objectively assess whether the decision they want to make is actually aligned with their purpose. So I just wanted to know how Susan used that to her advantage. She spoke about exploring the things that she's good at. So I just wanted her to chat more about the passion behind all of that and how it worked out for her. Thanks.
I think I like to network with people, and as Hendrik said, I really love people. So with the years, as the years went by, I really built up, I think, a really strong contact and network list. I think that was the one, option that I got a lot of people that I know, and people that, you mustn't go and beg for work, but you must have the ability and the resilience to market yourself. And there's maybe a thin line between that, but that's the one thing I think. And the other thing is that I also learned my children is that anything that if something approach you or you approach something, tackle it, take it, try to learn from that. Now sometimes I took jobs that I really don't know what I must do, but I just start and I go into that, and then I learn from that. So you must be multi-skilled as far as possible, diverse. Try to learn some goals every day. Try to learn a new thing at least every year, a prominent thing, but try to learn every week something. I think Ansa is a very good example of that with Facebook and all her internet marketing skills and so forth. But, don't think like, I don't know if there's a word like that, but box-wise. You must really think broad and all abilities and all your skills, and maybe not always formal skills, but skills that you've got, that that is your strong points. And if you're in that, in the gutter, if I can call it that way, ask somebody who's really honest with you and say, tell me, what do you think, is my strong points? What must I do to get into the market again. I think that's very good. And the other thing, okay, maybe that's out of my social background and I'm not really an angel, but if you can do good to others, do so, because it comes back to you. It may be that maybe I help Hendrik with something. Maybe Hendrik, say for instance, it not comes back from Hendrik, but then Ansa help me again. You must really do that, you know, plow into the community, do your best, network, help, assist, and also your own integrity and your own brand, your best brand. And if you do so, then the abilities and the options will be there. I hope I've answered you now. I'm not sure.
But I think you're making a valid point, Susan, and I'm actually thinking about it. It's in the world that we are living in, you know, and looking at the 100-year life and the multi-dimensional world we're living in, that a lot of people will actually have much more than 1, 2, 3, 4 careers, and it's how do you grow skills so that you can move to another area. And then I think an important point that you are making is how do you grow those networks, because the networks will help you to most probably move into another career, into another career, and they also within a householding, it will most probably mean that sometimes one person will be the breadwinner, and in some other instance somebody else will be the breadwinner, and that's fine in the world that we are living in. But that also means that, to your initial point, having a trusted advisor or financial coach to guide you through this process, because there's a lot of money decisions that you need to take, that, you know, if you take the wrong money decisions, that could have a huge impact on your financial future and supporting you in the process.
Especially also when you go through that different phases of grief, né? If you like in the wrong phase, né? You will like to splash money just to feel better, but you will feel that feeling is maybe for a day or a few hours, and then you're back to square one. Me? So it's really important that you have that relationship. That just to tell somebody, I can't handle this, and I'm very afraid that I will maybe misuse my own money or whatever. Me? So that relationship with your financial advisor or coach is very, very important. And I can also just say that my children, you know, due to that constraint or challenges, I also learned them it's not a problem, it's a challenge. We all like a challenge. We don't like a problem. That also helps a lot. And their entrepreneurial skills is really, very well developed. Because they know sometimes now we have to make a plan. Me? And then we make a plan. But the word challenge, and you know, other thing maybe that you can, it's a very maybe common tip, but or an ordinary tip. But what I do for the last 5-6 years, I've got like my calendar on my laptop, and every day when I finish that day, I put in writing what was good about the specific day. And if it's really a bad day, I will put something there that I've got eyes to see, or I've got coffee to drink, me. Because sometimes you really, what is good about this day, ne? So then I do that, and then from time to time I just look back, and I say, oh, but you know, that happened that day. I nearly forgot. I forgot about that. It really helps. It's like it compile your day. You feel, yeah, because it, you know, we can get into that mind feeling of there's nothing good about this day, ne? Yeah, so that helps me also a lot. Every day I must do that, and you get easily into that habit.
I see here we've got 2 follow the leaders here, and that's Mark and Mary, and they're now on my screen next to each other. So any questions there from KZN?
Yes, I do. I love the perspective of this. Obviously, as financial planners, we're so involved in these scenarios, and sometimes it's a bit hard because you know, you're talking retrenchment, but we've got such a growing situation in this country where more and more people are forced or have their own businesses. So it's not a question of retrenchment, it's a question of business failing, you know. We're very interesting to see sort of the viewpoints on how to handle that, because obviously, you know, retrenchment, it's some big bad HR person's made a decision, you know, and often a lot of people, they get retrenched, they start their own business because they don't want to respond to a boss anymore. The other thing is a really good friend of mine often asks me the question. She says, what's our moral imperative in terms of, you know, when clients are doing something and you can see it's wrong, to what extent are we morally obliged to tell them that, you know, is that the right thing? Or, you know, do we have to provide the advice and then it's up to them to implement or not?
So you're asking a lot of questions, Mark.
Well, it's all on you.
So let's start with the first one at the back, and Ansa, you and Susan can also come in. Is starting from the back is, I think from a coaching perspective, it is to ask the questions for the client, and then it's up to the client to say, you know, do I want to continue with this, and you know, perhaps it's serving them in some or other way, although it's destructive, but I think asking the questions will get them to reflect. I think that we've definitely got a moral obligation in terms of that, because, you know, that's why we are their advisors and their guides, is sometimes to ask those difficult questions that they at least think about it, you know, Mark. So I think definitely around that. I'm reading an interesting book on being. It's an Australian that wrote the book. It's linked to the whole ontological coaching perspective, and there's two two language drivers there, and the one is awareness, and awareness is not being oblivion, because there's rules in the world that's out there. So if I'm going to do stupid things is going to happen back to me. So I need to create that awareness to also, and that the second one is then authenticity that goes with that, is how authentic am I? You know, am I listening to what I'm seeing and the awareness I'm seeing, or are they, or am I, you know, Susan will say, of is ek halfstarrig en ek gaan net aan soos ek wil, you know, is, do I then see and authentically I can feel in my internal way of being what I'm doing is actually not the right thing, and how do I engage? And I think then the last point, and then I'll give Ansa and Susan also, is on business. I think it's so much more important to engage people around you, because a lot of people most probably started off in a business and they haven't got all the skills. The second thing is, things change around us. How do we involve other people to get involved in the business? And then the third thing is, and that's where I can think and I can tell my own story in terms of Une, and Dirk will also know this from a life planning perspective, is I think in business, it's so critical to follow your passion. You know, I was in corporate, like all of you know, and for 26 years, then I did 2 years consulting work, started a franchise, but my total heart was not in that franchise and managing advisors, appointing advisors, training advisors. And then I started the coaching business on the side, and my passion was actually in the coaching business. And I just got to a point to say I'm going to be so frustrated there. This is a very expensive MBA and journey I went through, but trying to keep a business open and doing on the other side what is my passion is rather close down the damn business. And that was the journey to get to coaching and doing what I love. And there I'm doing it. And, you know, and for us as a family, yeah, lot of money that went down the drain, but wasn't it for that, I wouldn't have got out in terms of the coaching business and giving my full passion and energy into that, you know. So I think again is, how do you take ownership of that business that's failing? And in a lot of circumstances, it won't be, you know, it can be, you know, I talked to a client yesterday, it was just the markets closed down where they were in. So how are you agile in terms of moving? I think that's the other part. Are you agile to move into something else, Mark? So a little bit of my own story there, but yeah, that's my just world according to Hendrik. So yeah. Yes, Mark.
No, I think you and Francois must be cosmically related somehow. But it's so interesting you said, because the thing is like, if you, let's say you've got a client who's, you know, going through his midlife crisis, so there's the new young wife in, and he leaves everything to her and not to the kids. You know, that's a question got posed to me by a friend a while ago, and I'm like, well, you know, where do we draw the line? You say, okay, well, are the kids minors? Because then you can say, but hang on, you know, what about this? But if they're not, well, it's his choice, you know. I mean, I had a client the other day tell me straight, she said, Mark, I'm a ski boat club member. And I said, what? At your age? You're kidding me? She said, yeah, a ski boat, spend kids' inheritance.
Yeah, but I think that's a topic on inheritance is a total topic one can spend time on. Is, you know, do we are we, and it's a tradition thing, are we really obliged to leave money for the kids, or is it up to rather for you that worked for it to spend it, but in a truthful and authentic way? I think that. And then the other one is, I think the Americans have got what they call an ethical will, is for if you then want to give it to the new young wife's child, or your young wife's child, is at least leave a letter why you are doing this and how you love your other kids, you know. And that's the principle of an ethical will, is a letter that goes with your estate. Dirk, you've got your hand up. Thought there from your side.
Yeah, thanks, Hendrik. So, you know, being a planner, I think what you said about following your passion is really important. I think unless you're just in it for the money, which we're not, I think people on this call. So, you know, you've got to have you'll have your own values, and I think you need to decide, you know, who you will deal with and who you won't deal with. And sometimes it'll be financially rewarding, other times it won't. It just depends on, but if you're looking at long-term relationships, I think we sign up for the good and the bad times. And sometimes, you know, we can all think of cases where we know clients are making bad decisions, but, you know, it's around their kids. I mean, there's, you know, my view on inheritance is there's too many kids waiting for an early inheritance, as opposed to those who, you know, who are saying, who are actually financially independent themselves. But I think, I don't think there's a right or wrong answer. I think we just need to decide as business owners, because I don't think you can work with people unless you honestly believe in what they're doing and that you can support them in that way. You know, then you should probably rather disengage and let them find someone who they can relate to. So it's a very personal thing, and doesn't always make financial sense. You know, with COVID, we've had clients who lost everything. We had a client who went through a terrible divorce, and it was terrible in that he lost absolutely everything. And then he lost his business because of the type of business he was in. And then he was in a car accident that nearly killed him. So, I mean, he literally has nothing left. And as a business, you've got to decide now, do we let a 20-year relationship go down the drain and say, sorry, we can't work with you because you can't pay us? Or do we say, hang on, we're going to help you rebuild because we know what your values are, you know what's important, and we can work with you? And I think, you know, that's far more rewarding in the work that we do. And then obviously, you know, the coaching skills that you teach us, you know, I'm not a financial coach, but, you know, we like to use the skills that we learn to try and assist clients in this way. But I think it's personal. And I think I think you need to make a call. I think if you're not going to make that call, then you're probably just in it for the money.
No, thanks for that. And I agree. And I think that's where there must be congruence also between a planner and a client. So, you know, and I think that's where most probably a values thing also important, that one have got more or less the same values in terms of engaging. And I think that's critical. And I think that's one of the reasons why it's so important to have a advisor that you have got a long-term relationship with, because at least you've got similar ways of seeing the world. Ansa, there from your side, I think it's most probably nearly closing remarks there from your side, Ansa.
Thank you. Okay, I don't want to take too much time. I just want to find out, does anybody know anything about the grief cycle? Who is familiar with the grief cycle? Because I think that's something to be very aware of when a client, when they get retrenched, or even when their own business doesn't work. There's the initial, I'll just explain it very shortly. There's the initial shock. And then, okay, yeah, you're familiar with that. There's the initial shock, and then there's the denial, and then the bargaining, and then the anger, all those kind of things. And inevitably, they need to be angry with somebody somewhere in this phase. So it might end up being their financial advisor. You know, it's like when there's a patient in, the medical field, they're inevitably angry with the doctor who couldn't save their loved one, or that kind of thing. And just to know that it's a very normal thing for the client to kind of go through all these emotions or stages, and get to the hopeless, the helpless, and eventually the ditch, the depression. And that's where the curiosity needs to start take over, where they can start building and experimenting with new skills, like Susan said, with your expertise, and just build up to somewhere where there's a meaningful new normal. And to remember that when your clients lash out, it's nothing personal. It's part of their very normal reaction to blame somebody. And it's even worse when something you start yourself, when that goes down the drain. It's a lot easier to blame HR when you get retrenched. But it's a lot more confusing when you've started a business and you didn't make it work. It's kind of almost a complex grief that they go through then. So just a little bit on that.
Yeah, thanks for sharing it. That was actually in my mind when Susan also talked about, most probably in that cycle, we'll most probably spend more money in certain of those phases. Susan, a last thought from your side.
All that I think of, you must never estimate as a financial coach, or your relationship with your client. Now, I've got that type of relationship that I will phone him and say to him, I don't know if I can do this and this. And he said, no, man, let's talk about it. You understand what I mean? He's really my friend. Okay, I don't know how many clients you've got, but that's a very important relationship, that you can really see that person as a facilitator or a motivator, and that you can really go to him with your issues, and then that person will stay with you all the way. So it's that integrity and authenticness and all that type of things that you need from your advisor. Because in your field, I know there's a lot of grabbers, runners and grabbers, as well as in any other type of sector. So it's very important building that. It's a nice experience if you have somebody like this with you, and then go all the way with you. Yeah.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, Hendrik. It was really very nice. Yeah, thank you.
Yeah, so I dropped Susan's email address in the chat. The book that she wrote is a nice, I think it's 31 pages or something like that. If you've got a client going through such a process, I think it's a very nice book to give as a gift to to the client that the client can read through, and then you can have a conversation because it touch on all the different phases. We've also built a retrenchment course, which is online. So if you've got like an employer that's going through a process, you can talk to us. If it's a larger employer, we can even white label it with your branding, etc., and we bring you into the process. So if you've got somebody like that, you're more than welcome to talk to us. Thank you, Ansa. And if you need somebody to speak to clients around kids and kid behavior, Ansa is on the front pages of the local newspaper, and she's brilliant around parenting, etc. So I'd also dropped information in the chat, and you can follow her also on LinkedIn. And yeah, she's a social media, so she's on all the social media. So, but sharing very nice content, more on leadership and parenting and our own positivity. And thanks a million for your time and engagement this afternoon. Much appreciated. Without you, we would not have been able to share this and have conversations and learn from each other. So thank you very much.
Thank you, everybody.
Thank
Stay
you.
safe.
Thanks, everyone.
Cheers,
Thank you.
guys.
Thanks,
Bye.
Darren.